Our reading today is by Fred Small, Standing on the Side of Love. Where is our holy church? We're on the side of love. Many Unitarian Universalists suffer from a chronic identity crisis. People ask us, what do Unitarian Universalists believe? And we freeze. We don't know what to say because Unitarian Universalists believe so many things, so many different things. We are priests of paradox, apostles of ambiguity, and nattering nabobs of nuance. And so the Unitarian Universalist Association produces 7 principles and 6 sources and countless pamphlets and little wallet cards all to remind us of what we kind of sort of believe. We are exhorted to compose elevator speeches, summations of Unitarian Universalism so pithy that they might be recited on an elevator in its fleeting passage between floors. Do we believe in God? Question simple. Answer impossible. Define God. Define believe. Define we. Define in. Whatever God is or is not, I don't think God cares what we believe. I don't think Jesus cares what we believe. And I know the Buddha doesn't care what we believe. The important question is not what we believe, it's where we stand. I want to be standing on the side of love. Of course, when I say standing, I'm not talking about a physical posture. Rosa Parks stood on the side of love by remaining seated. I'm talking about a moral stance, not just assumed privately in our hearts, but witnessed boldly in our families and schools and workplaces and communities, at the State House, in the halls of Congress. I'm talking about faith in action. I'm not talking about sanctimony. I'm talking about intentionality, understanding that our practice will be imperfect, as each of us is imperfect. What is our purpose? What is our aspiration? What is our commitment? To side with love. When Unitarian Lydia Maria Child defied the prohibition of her time against women speaking in public and demanded freedom for enslaved African Americans and the vote for women, when she protested the Trail of Tears, the brutal removal of the Cherokee, she was siding with love. When Unitarian Universalist minister Jim Reeb heeded the call of Martin Luther King Jr. to Selma, Alabama, and was bludgeoned to death by racists, he was siding with love. Siding with love doesn't require power, it requires courage, because courage is power. When a child on a playground sticks up for another who is teased or bullied or left out because they're different, the child is siding with love. Siding with love affirms the full humanity of all people. It honors the inherent worth and dignity, the spark of the divine in each and every person. Siding with love means treating each other well, whether ally or adversary. Love is patient, wrote the Apostle Paul. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. Siding with love means being more committed to being reconciled than to being right. Love does not insist on its own way. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. A religious person, Rabbi Abraham Heschel taught us is one whose greatest passion is compassion, whose greatest strength is love, and defiance of despair. His friend Martin Luther King Jr. added, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. So when someone asks us what Unitarian Universalists believe, or why we're speaking out on gay rights, or immigrant rights, or disability rights, or human rights, or why we bother to go to church on Sunday morning, let's tell them we are siding with love.
Come thou fount of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise, while the hope of life's perfection faithful. May we still thy goodness prove. Come, thou fount of every vision, lift our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb dwell together in thy home. Hear the cries of warful silent. Feel our love glow like the sun. When we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come, thou fount of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us bind ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thine aid, O fount of justice, earth be fair as heaven above.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, friends. My name is Mindy Vincent, and I'm really excited to be here and share a little bit with you today about my experience that has brought me to a place where I can side with love today. But I just have to say, like, in my life, I grew up with religious trauma because I'm from this state, right? And so I know that people know what I'm talking about, right? I have to say, this is a very trippy place. I have never seen my name by the word sermon. I posted that on Facebook. I was like, wow, that's weird. But then I also walked in and I saw Black Lives Matter, and I thought, that's very strange. And as I hear people talk in the hymns and everything, I'm like, what a loving, trippy place. Like, I wish we had one of these places in Heber, because I really struggle with finding a place where, like, people are accepting, and I'm not like, you know, I did go to this one place for a while, and then they came and told me there was something wrong with gay people, and I was like, well, now I can't go there anymore, you know? And so, what a beautiful place, what beautiful human beings you all are. So, thank you for having me. So, I have to tell you a little bit about my background to understand, like, how I got to the place that I did in the work that I do and in my life, period. I'm a person with a history of addiction. I was addicted to meth for 17 years. I lost my whole life to meth 1,000,000 times over. Like, I can blow up my whole life up in like a 24-hour span if given the opportunity to do so. But then I was given opportunities to do something different, and I failed on a lot of those opportunities, and I certainly did not get my life right away. But through my own experience, it led me to going into drug court. Like, I got sober. I've been sober 12 and a half years now. And I got sober through our typical systems. You know, I was in the criminal justice system, so I went through felony drug court. I'm a graduate of drug court. I've been incarcerated many times. I've lost custody of my son twice. And that's just the kind of paradigm that we treat people who are struggling with addiction in. It's how our systems are set up. And yet we know that people who are struggling with substance use are most often medicating mental illness or trauma. And so it's sad that our systems create additional trauma and perpetuate that for people and then expect people to get better. But because they didn't know any different, I had internalized that message throughout my recovery. So when I went into this field, as an abstinence-based therapist. And I said the kind of things that I hear lots of people say to people. Like, if you wanted it bad enough, you'd get it, you know? Or, I can't help you until you get sober. Which doesn't even make any sense, because people are coming to me because they can't get sober. And if I tell them you have to, you know, substance abuse is the only field of work that I've seen where we require the outcome before the work's been done to get there. And then we punish people because they can't reach those expectations we set for them. So I was a part of that paradigm until I was 7.5 years sober. And when I was 7.5 years sober, actually on the 24th of this month, it'll be the 5-year anniversary that I lost my big sister to an opiate overdose. And what you have to know about my sister is that she is the good one. My sister is, it'll make me cry. I had to grab a tissue because I knew if I talked about my sister, I would cry. But my sister, man, she had the biggest heart. She was so compassionate and so loving and so brave and courageous, like emotionally. Like people think that I'm brave and courageous because I'll fight anybody. I'm like one of those little honey badgers or something, right? Like if I think something's wrong, we're gonna fight about it. But my sister, she is able to like love people and forgive people and bring people in a way that actually her whole life I yelled at her for it. I was like, you know, people are gonna take advantage of you. You know, you can't just sit and love people who are not worth it. You know, I mean, and I always tried, I felt like I was protecting her, you know, from an ugly world. But really, what I didn't realize until the moment that she died is that I was trying to change the very thing about her that made her her, and that made her such an amazing human being. And it's interesting because the only way I was able to learn that lesson is through losing her. The moment that my sister passed away, the very things that drove me crazy about her, or the very things that I tried to change, are the things that I would give anything to have one more time. And when my sister passed away, my little brother was addicted to heroin as well. My sister was addicted to pain medication, and when they cut her off her pain medication and put her on Suboxone, she, the first time she used heroin, she died. And that heroin that she used came from my little brother. And she had been calling him every day for like a week, telling him how sick she was and how she just needed to get well and she needed his help. And he was like, no, I'm not going to give you heroin, you know, because everybody has their own little things in their mind where it's like, well, as long as I'm not doing this, then I'm good, you know, or whatever. And you know, nobody wants to be the person who got somebody on heroin, right? But my sister had already been addicted to opiates for 15 years. It doesn't matter what kind of opiate you're ingesting. Like if you're addicted, you're addicted, and there's no judgment about it. So anyway, so my brother eventually got my sister $20 worth of heroin, and she and her boyfriend split it. And $10 worth of heroin is not enough to kill my sister, but it did. And so my little brother, in that moment that I lost my sister, I can tell you that like when I got that phone call and my mom started telling me she's dead, your sister is dead, I was like my whole world stopped. You know, like I can't explain to you the shock that came about. I can't tell you how powerless I felt. I remember just screaming, God, no, just please, just save her. I got on the phone with the cops and I said, where is she? And they said she's at the morgue. And I said, you have to go there and try to revive her. I can't lose my sister. She's the only one I have. You know, and it was, losing her was so hard. And then to think about my little brother still being addicted and also believing that he killed his sister, it brought me to a place instantly where I finally figured out how to meet somebody where they're at. Because I was so desperate to save my brother's life because I couldn't bury two siblings. And so I remember at first I went to him and I was like, okay, well, you know, because I'm the person in recovery and I'm a therapist, like I'm an expert, right? So I go to him and I start telling him all about what's wrong with him and what he will need to recover and what we need to do. I'm like, you need to meet other recovery addicts, follow me. And he didn't, like that wasn't his thing. Like how I recovered was not what was working for him. And when he started really pulling away from me is when I realized like, oh my gosh, like I need to ask him what he needs, and I need to help him in the way that he needs me to help him. And that's what I did. And he told me he needed methadone, and I paid to get my brother on methadone, and he ended up relapsing, going off the methadone that time. But when he was ready again, he came to me, you know, because I told him, Stan, I just love you. I just need you to stay alive. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to help you without any judgment. Just please let me love you. You know, because even if I'd have lost him to addiction too, like, it's about how I can live with myself for how I treated somebody. You know, and when you're dealing with somebody with an opiate addiction, every time you see them really might be the last time you see them. You know, and so when I work with families and moms ask me, like, because we have this belief about tough love in this country, about how we treat people who struggle with substances and people with good intentions, right? Tell people, well, you have to cut them off. You have to cut them off. You don't feed them, don't let them in your house, like, don't give them any money. They have to hit rock bottom. But I can tell you that rock bottom kills people. And that the answer is not in tough love. The answer is in compassion. And it is in loving people. And it's in asking them, what do you need for me to help you? What can I do? You know, being that soft place for someone to land. And it is not always easy to garner compassion for ugly behaviors, right? Like, I am not here at all to deny the damage that comes along with drug abuse, right? However, for someone who is already medicating their own traumas and who hate themselves, and like, I promise you that none of you could ever dislike or be as disappointed in an addict as they are in themselves. Like, that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Your shaming does not, it doesn't even compare to the self-shame, the self-hatred, right? And that's the stuff that people continue to use over. That's the stuff that makes people believe they can't get any better. You know, and when you've made so many mistakes in your life, you get to a place where it feels like you're not capable of doing anything any different. And if not for people who come along and lift us up with hope and believe in us when we can't believe in ourselves, change can't happen. You know, and so when you can't garner compassion for the behaviors, garner compassion for what's driving those behaviors. When I think about how sad somebody's life must be for heroin, injecting heroin to be the best answer for what they can do with their life that day, that's sad. That is sad. And so through these interesting things in my life, that's how I learned to really meet people where they're at. Like I said, I would give anything to love my sister one more time. I would give anything to feel her love one more time. And so I made it my mission to try to help families to not ever have to experience that. Every life on this planet is worthwhile, has worth, has value inherently, right? And actually, people who use substances are some of the most amazing human beings on the face of the earth. Like, when we recover, we turn around and do something with it. We change the world. There was a hymn, the hymn we sang talked about changing the world. I thought, this is my kind of hymn. But that's what we do. We give back, we change the world. You know, I used to ask myself, why did I get to recover? Because there's a lot of people out there that were far more deserving of recovery than I am. And at first I used to say, why me? And then I thought, well, why not me? Why not me? You know, and today I know that, you know, for the grace of God, there go I. And, you know, God gave me this opportunity because He knew that I would take it and I would give it back to other people for the rest of my life. So that's just a little bit about my story. I don't want to go over in time. So I would really encourage you to challenge some of the biases and the paradigms that we hold in this country, within our communities. You know, Ogden has the 3rd highest opiate overdose rate in the state and has for a long time. Like, I mean, I'm sure all of you who live here know that drug use is rampant here. You know, in order to really help people, you have to think outside of the box, and we have to first of all treat them as human beings. You know, they are people who use substances, and they're people who are struggling, and they're often people who have so many other problems in addition to it, you know, and what they need is love and compassion. And it might not always heal people immediately, but I do believe in time that it will. So that's really all I have to share. Thanks for having me here, you lovely bunch of folks.